Do you think that in the last few years, social media has made us more anxious about our body image or less?
For me, it's definitely made me more aware of my body image. I think it's really easy to compare yourself to what you see. But I would say that over the past couple of years, I think as I've gotten older, I've realised that what you see isn't the truth, isn't exactly what's representative of real life. So I think that makes it easier to dampen some of those anxieties.
Yeah, I agree. I think, so I've done modelling since I was 15, and back then, obviously, there was a certain way that you had to look, and it's still very much like that now. It's evolved a lot, it's changed a lot. They accept more tattoos and like piercings and different shapes, etc. But there's still a lot of, I guess, stern rules. I have quite a lot of examples. I remember once going to Paris for Paris Fashion Week, and this is when I was ultra slim, naturally. I was about a size 6, and I remember going to a casting, and they picked at everything. I had like tiny skin spots, and they were like, "You're spotty, your nose is too big, your lips are too big," and I was just like, "Oh my God." I remember leaving there just like, "Well, I want to change everything. I want to change everything." But that's how my face is, and this is how I look. So
how do you think does that still stay with you now?
Yes, a little bit, because my body's changed again. I think as you grow older, your body constantly changes. So I think you kind of learn to accept that body, and then it changes again. And then you're seeing stuff online. So you're just like, well, what should I look like? Should I, what is a body?
What is a
body? But I think it's definitely just accepting yourself and understanding your genetics and your DNA and stuff, and kind of working with that. But it's really tough because you're constantly being thrown all these different ways that we're supposed to look, your skin, your hair, your teeth, your nose, your eyes. It's just really, it's overwhelming, isn't it? How do you find it?
I find that for people who are much younger and are still looking for their self-identity, still trying to figure out who they are, they're a lot more vulnerable to all of these messaging and suggestions that are thrown to them by social media. But I think when you hit a certain life stage, past your 20s, perhaps in your early 30s, and you've gone through that journey yourself of being very susceptible to what other people say, you tend to believe them, but you also get to a point where you just sort of, like what you said earlier, you just sort of just begin to accept yourself. And that takes a lot of self-awareness. I myself, what I've learned to overcome that really is having to do a lot of deep inner work. And we were discussing that earlier before, during the pandemic, I didn't have a lot to do. We had so much time to sit with our thoughts, with our emotions. And one of the first things we tend to do is really just to face our inner demons, and that also includes having to come face to face with your physical appearance.
I think social media has a negative impact on body image in a number of ways. There's always been an issue in relation to how people see themselves, whether that's in the public eye, commercializing of it all as well. But I think with social media coming along, it's now more visible, more accessible, and has more of different images for people to, if you want, compare themselves with, be that younger children, adolescents and adults who, I guess we really live in a society where beauty is perceived in a particular way, and if that's always shown to us on social media as being aesthetically enhanced, a certain type of body shape, more slim rather than a larger, fuller figure, it's going to have an internal influence on somebody who's looking at that, who's thinking that's more how I want to be, more how I should be, more how I can be accepted in society. So I guess they will try to gravitate more towards changing their image to reflect what they're actually looking at on social media.
I remember when we used to spend so much time on Zoom or, talking to people on video, and you'd be looking at your face.
Yeah.
Much. I mean, I can look at my face a lot anyway, yeah. But then all of a sudden you're spending hours just constantly looking at your face, being like, is that actually how people see me?
Exactly.
But then on the other side, I would say, I think social media obviously has its downsides, but for me, I think when I was growing up, I grew up in a very small town in North Yorkshire, so there weren't a lot of people who looked like me. So I think my comparison to what image and what the ideals of body image was mostly Caucasian, Western faces and bodies. But I feel like if I had social media back then, there would be an element of where I'd see other people who were more like me from different backgrounds, and actually realize that there's not one ideal. So I think it was very much Eurocentric when I was growing up as to what you should look like, your facial features, what how you have your hair and all these things. But I wonder if social media existed then, I would have had a much more of a balanced view of what was actually happening in the rest of the world, not just in my small town in Yorkshire.
Well, there's two sides of it. I mean, on the one hand, there's always going to be like issues and harmful effects caused about by social media, especially when you're not careful. And I think like the youth of today, the younger generations, when they're not guided by their parents, their school, where there's not enough education available to them about digital literacy, then it can very easily go the other direction. However, like what you said, and also in my personal experience, social media can also be a force for good because of how small the world has become and how easily available these information are, whether they're good or bad. So it takes a lot of discernment as well, and that boils down to a lot of deep inner work that you have to be very secure in yourself. And it's a journey. It takes a while to get there, but I think the younger generation, the youth of today, they're also in a way quite lucky to have parents who are more self-aware. I mean, you're a mom yourself and you're very self-aware. You've gone through those traumatic, like some certain traumas in the past, particularly being a part of the modeling industry, which is very hard on your physical appearance, but then you've managed to find your way through it. You've navigated up to a certain point where you're just so secure with yourself. And so your kids, your daughters are so incredibly lucky to have parents like you, right? That you can guide, them through it, because I didn't have that growing up. So I had to learn how to navigate everything by myself, and I went through so many mistakes. But I think on the other side of the coin, I've learned to just fully accept myself along the process because of all the bad stuff that happened. You get to appreciate the good stuff now because of what's happened.
I think because the people making the social media content are growing up and going through their own journeys, they are sort of teaching their followers that journey to give them insight in what they went through.
I think that's a nice way to think about it, but there are obviously a lot of influencers out there who aren't particularly creating content that is that helpful. I wouldn't say things are positive or negative, because that's such a stark way to look at things. But within fitness and dieting and nutrition, there's so many people who present themselves as people who are knowledgeable and have the background and the studies and to present this information. But in fact, that a lot of them don't. And that's a really dangerous place to be in, especially when you are influenced. I think we focus a lot on young people, but even nowadays, like even me in my mid-30s, it's hard not to be swayed by looking a certain way. I'll be like, why don't I look like that? Like, I put so much time and effort into what I'm doing, and then taking your self-value from the image that you see, which...
I think that's changed over the years as well. People making the content growing up and going on their own journey. So the content reflects that. It used to be more about looking a certain way that was a sort of unrealistic level to attain. But now it's about body acceptance. And I think it's a lot more positive on the whole.
I think young people are becoming extremely insecure about their body image and the way they're looking. The age is incredibly more younger and younger in terms of their interest in appearance, image, body, beauty. you see very, very young children just starting from the process of skincare alone, using products that are not for a smooth young skin. It's more for an older, if you want, aging adult who's trying to retain some of the supplement of their skin or so forth. But now it literally feels as if it's just a normal process of this is what we do when we get to school ages. Influences of friends. Again, I do think social media plays a part in that, but then again, that's in terms of how are you parented, in terms of what are you allowed to access on a phone or on a digital device. What are your parents allowing you to access? Are you allowed to go onto social media platforms to actually see these things, TikTok or Instagram or YouTube as well? I guess it's really difficult because if you're not exposed to a lot of these things on social media, most likely you don't have anything to compare it with. But at the same time, in schools today, a lot of the conversation between young children and adolescents is about beauty. The inward is also aesthetics. So we can say social media, yes, does play a part, but I would also say just the influences of peer groups and friends and outside influences play a large part as well.
I feel like everyone's having kind of social media fatigue as well. I feel there's so much being, do this, do that, no, do it this way, no, do that, no, have this much, no, don't have that. And it's just like, oh my, how much can you consume without becoming information overloaded? So I have two children. So my big daughter's 23, my youngest is 13. My younger daughter is, so it's interesting. So they're 10 years apart in age. So I've raised them, I guess, I've always been their mum, but I've raised them differently in different times, I guess. So my younger daughter is a tomboy and very much not your typical girl, so to speak. And my big daughter is your typical girl, so to speak. So it's interesting just seeing them evolve. I am a content creator. The content I put out there is very holistical and very grounding. I'm always speaking of being yourself in all ways, shapes and forms. And as you were saying with the inner work, it's all about accepting yourself. I think once you accept yourself and who you are and how you look, and accepting the sides of you that are not perfect, so to speak, I think there's a level of peace that you kind of come to. Because yes, you can see people out there that may look like you or have a resemblance to, or you can relate to them, but that's still their story. So I think it's going back to yourself and understanding who you are and kind of where you are in life and what you want from life, and accepting that and just finding that grounded kind of peace space. Which is hard. I'm not saying that I'm at peace. I'm at peace, but it's also it's a thing of you just have to take things in small portions, and whenever you're listening or watching stuff, it's kind of not taking that all on board. It's kind of just listening, not receiving it though. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kind of, okay, that's a really nice perspective from their point of view. But this is who I am and this is where I am. And will any of that help me, or will that just make me feel worse? It's kind of just finding that happy medium. Because there is useful information out there, I think. But there is also stuff that, it's quite exhausting.
You can't take it as Bible. You've got to find what works for you.
So to your point, that's why it's so important to be able to curate who you follow, how you use things. But then again, it boils down to how well do you know yourself? Because when you see something on social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, when there's so much coming in, you need to have that sense of discernment to be able to quickly say, this one's for me, this one's not. Less.
But is it down to the person? Like, is it down to the individual? Like, us as individuals, it is everyone involved, isn't it? I think, like, to depend on the individual to self-regulate when we're talking about something that's actually much more rooted in mental health. It's not that easy, in as much as we can be responsible for our own consumption. I don't think the onus should be on us to do that. I think the government, I think big tech should take much more responsibility.
I think it comes down to education, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And schools have a big role in that. Some places, even countries or different schools, have a different way of going about it. Some might ban social media. Others will try to go the more educating route. Like my school, I think I was quite lucky that my school, they didn't ban social media, but they would often play during morning assembly a sort of cautionary story on cyberbullying, for example. And I think it just made us all aware not to, for example, cyberbully or body image from social media. And it was just educating. It wasn't trying to ban anything, because kids and teenagers will find a way to do it anyway. They'll find a way to get on social media anyway. So,
so do you think banning social media for people under a certain age shouldn't be a thing?
I mean, my daughter's 13 and she has it.
She's found a loophole. It's impossible to.
So, and I'd rather her be on there, and I know she's on there, and I can kind of control what she's seeing to a certain extent. Because, like you say, if they know they can't do something, they're going to do it anyway behind your back, and I'd rather know. So, but I think I also think that I feel like everyone has an agenda, don't they? So with everything, there's an intention and an agenda behind everything, isn't it? It's all about either making money or looking a certain way. We always step into our ego and want to be seen a certain way. So I feel like I think it's everyone's responsibility. Like, so
equally?
Even to a certain extent, because I feel like there's an agenda with everything, isn't there? So if you ban something, why do you want to ban it?
Right.
Is it because of control, or is it because you actually care about people?
As in, so if the government were to ban it, so say in Australia, they're bringing in the social media ban.
Exactly.
So in that perspective, are you where do you see that? Do you see that as the government wanting to control their citizens, or?
I think it's a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's a bit of everything. Yeah. I think, like I was saying earlier, I have 2 children. I'm their parent, but I guide them in life. I can't. It's impossible to control everything your children do. They are at school 8 hours a day. They go out with their mates. You don't know what their friends are doing. Every parent parents differently.
I think parents do have a responsibility to be spending time talking to their children about these things. It's not as if these subjects are not on the news or the television, so parents are oblivious to it. They're not. They're aware. I would say most parents are. I do think it's about taking time to sit down, not just say these things are not good for you, but explain why these things are not good for you and the impact that they could have on them now and later as well, from I think from a physical, emotional and psychological perspective, how they could harm these children. I also do feel the government, I think, you mentioned earlier on about regulations. I think maybe we need early interventions in schools. We need, professionals going into schools, talking about the impact of social media, talking about positive body image, positive self-views, confidence, self-esteem, and how it can develop, should I say, not necessarily from all of these external processes or devices or concepts and ideas, but looking more within in terms of what are the positivities you can self-identify and how those things can make you feel good and perform and achieve, rather than having to be, I can only perform and achieve if I look like this way or if I do this way, in terms of what I'm being told I should do to stand out and to be noticed and to be great.
So me as a content creator, I decline collaborations. If it doesn't align with me, I'm not doing it. I don't care if you're going to give me how much money or free products. I don't care. If it doesn't align with who I am as a person and the message I'm trying to put out there, then I'm not doing it. And I'd rather make that sacrifice. Whereas there's people out there that will just push anything just to be seen with a collaboration.
Like promoted posts and stuff like that. Like you can never trust what they're saying because when it's monetized, how can you ever know whether they?
I've used some of these stuff and I'm like, they're awful. They gave me acne, and I'm like, and there has been times where I've collaborated, and I always say in my contract, I need 2 weeks minimum. If it's something I'm using or ingesting, I need it to 2 weeks minimum for it to work. And if it doesn't work with me, I'm not posting about it. And I'll happily give you back a percentage of the money, because I think that's really important. I think children this day and age are in a different world that we were in, and they believe everything they see. So if you're pushing this thing of, what was it? Was it an elephant something? There was like a skin thing, and there was 8-year-olds using it. It's like, what is happening?
I mean, they've just brought out like face masks for kids.
Yeah,
and
I
they're like
understand
geared
you want
towards
children to have self-love. So I with that, I'm kind
But
of
is that
swaying.
self-love though?
Because probably they just want to sell a product.
They are,
selling a
of
product.
course.
It's selling a product, but it's also the self-love, I feel, comes from a self-pampering, giving yourself time.
True, but do you need a face mask?
But you don't need a face mask.
Yeah, when you're
Because
that
it
age,
might give
you
you
don't.
acne.
You
No, I'm
should
joking.
play outside or something.
And this is the thing with self-love. It's sold as like, you need this thing to do it.
Yeah.
It's
Or-
become materialised.
Yeah,
or
it's
like
become
with
this, it's just been sort of
It's become
taken
materialised.
advantage of by this commercial
That's what
world.
happens. Something gets trendy and then it blows up and everyone does it, and then it's just shoved in your face,
Yeah.
and then you're, okay, I have self-love, but you still don't.
I think it's a very difficult road, and I think being more strict in terms of digital devices, I think, is one of them. I know with my own children, I felt that having a phone, a mobile phone, or an iPad, or things like that were, I could see from very early that they were tools that were, in my viewpoint, a bit dangerous, really, because they just access to information, to images, too early as well, in particular, would have an influence on how a child would start to see and view themselves in comparison to what they're seeing, what they're believing, what they're taking in, what is the brain processing in relation to self and others, or others. And, it's all about, again, wanting to belong, how one wants the world to see them, and how people think they need to act or behave or do to fulfill that external image to the rest of the world. So, yeah, it's about, I'm sorry to say, restricting access to digital devices, and most definitely to social media platforms. I'm not blaming everything on this, but it does have a large impact. You can't stop your children from going to school or having friends, and friends will have external influence, or shall I say, friends are external influences as well, in the sense that even if you're not on social media and your friends are on social media, for example, they will tell you what they see. You will listen, you will learn. You may even feel even more eager and interested in wanting to see and learn this as well, because your own parents are not allowing you to do that. It's a really we are in a very difficult time, I would say, now in this day and age.
You know, speaking of surgeries, because like I grew up in the Philippines and in Asia, the kind of beauty standards that we have back home is very much heavily influenced by the Western beauty features.
Yeah.
So we're talking having, defined nose, like fair skin, slimmer figure, which a lot of the natural feature here is something that most people here would want to change. So it's always like the grass is always greener on the other side, isn't it?
It is.
But on that note, that's really caused a lot of, that's driven a lot of like surgeries in like, South Korea, Thailand, Philippines, one of them. But then coming here, I felt like what I used to hate about like my own feature back home is actually very much like quite celebrated here in a way. And so it just really gives you perspective on like how beauty standards and I guess body image as well is part of it, where you tend to just learn to like you tend to like what you don't have. And what I find helpful for me to get over is to just view myself, view all my features as a feature, not a flaw.
Yeah.
And It's been very helpful, and I think if someone watching this can take away from like their insecurities when it comes to physical appearance, that could be it. Like just seeing your feature as a feature, not a flaw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so easy to just pick at yourself, isn't it, for everything? And then you know, but it's a physical thing, isn't it? So like as you were saying, it's the self-love comes from within, from you. It's rooted with you. So yeah, from a holistical level, for me, that's meditating, it's grounding, it's sitting with myself and my feelings, and kind of doing stuff that's quite raw rather than material, rather than trying to get something to substitute. I'd rather I just go in, kind of work with myself.
That's quite the opposite of social media. It's sort of detoxing from it. I see a lot of people online, they say, go touch grass or something. So it's become this term because people are getting very tired of social media, I think. They still use it because you kind of have to. But I think people nowadays are starting to feel it. For example, their attention spans have gone down because of social media. And I think, so you, sort of grounding practices like meditation, I think that's coming away from the fact of social media.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We also have to really acknowledge that plastic surgery is much more accessible now as well. I mean, you can travel to a number of different countries. I'm not going to name them because I think that most people know, but you can travel to a number of different countries now, and specifically for certain types of plastic surgeries. And we also know that a lot of the plastic surgeries or aesthetic changes are not regulated. So it's not as if there is some kind of regulation worldwide where you have to go for a particular procedure legally or so forth to perform. You don't, unfortunately. And prices, as once upon a time, if I remember years back, the thought of plastic surgery, I think just the signs, the zeros that would come after the price would be an automatic deterrent. Whereas today, I mean, there are so many advertisements of these special offers. Come here, special offer to get this done. Come here to get special offer to get that done. And people are greatly buying into that reduced expense, I would say. Because everybody wants the butt lift or the lip enhancement or the breast enhancement, a number of other procedures there, but this is what people perceive as, it will make me feel better, it will make me look better, also make me feel better. And I have to go into the feeling part of it, because a lot of the process is, if I look this way, I will feel a lot better because I'm going to get a lot of outside attention, and that outside attention is going to then stroke my ego, stroke my back. And I just want to mention, I'm not going to say it's a confidence issue or necessarily an insecure issue. It's a lot about, I think, how the view of people have of themselves in terms of, what are their early experiences in terms of feeling accepted and belonging within their own household? What are the early messages they were receiving from within their household? What are the script messages that they've internalized in their minds about themselves and how they view themselves and how the world views them as well? In psychology, there's a process in terms of what mechanism we all individually use if you want to evaluate ourselves. And it's called a locus of evaluation, where you can have an internal locus of evaluation where you use your own understanding, information you've gathered from yourself, the feedback you've received from family members or friends or the external people around you, but feedback you take in, you take all this information in, you put it in a blender if you want, blend it all up, and you come up with an information that's like, oh, this is how I see myself based on all of that. Whereas if you tend to have an external locus of evaluation, there's no internal process. It's everything from outside. You want to be evaluated by what other people say, by other people think, what they believe you should be presenting or looking at. And I think that strongly, an internal or an external locus of evaluation heavily comes from your early experiences, the script messages you develop about yourself and others based on those experiences, and the feedback and messages that have been fed to you as well.
I'm heavily present on social media because unfortunately brands want to know your following and you're this and you're that. You have to send them all your analytics. Oh my God, it's crazy. Even modelling agencies require you to have a profile on social medias because that's where everything's online. It's quite...
I mean, it makes sense. If a brand can bank on the fact that you already have however many X followers, then that's already a proportion of people who may buy your product that you didn't have access to before. But yeah, I mean, it's a dangerous road to go down when so much of your value or what other people put value on you is how many followers you have or how many likes you're getting from your... And this is why I think, going back to like the ban, I think it's a good I really do agree with Australia trying to do that and trying to take control of the situation and be like, you know what, people under the age of 16 don't need to have this level of social media. Yes, they could have a messaging app so they can keep in touch with their friends or keep in touch with their family and things like that. But do they really need to be shown so many different videos and images of various things that they don't really need to be involved in?
Do you know if they're... I actually only heard about that news recently. So do you know if they're given a sort of alternative platform? Because if there's no alternative, then the risk is that those teenagers will end up finding a way through something perhaps more damaging, an app that's not regulated, for example. And so it could be worse. It's kind of like how in this country there was a clampdown on adult content and age verification system. So that sounds like a good idea, but a lot of people ended up going to even darker websites, seeing worse content, and then their kids might look at that worse content. They find a way. So do you think...
Is it just TikTok banging?
No, so they haven't exclusively said which platforms. They're working with the tech companies to be like, you need to, it's about age verification. So like making sure that they're strict on age verification, making sure that they haven't highlighted like which specific ones, but I think it is mostly the big ones like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Threads, things like that. But also it can create a long term. I think we're looking quite short term in terms of like, yes, the kids are going to revolt, but really, if you're under the age of 16, you still have a guardian who's there. And over time, will that then start to take away the reliance on social media? If we think 10, 20, 30 years in the future, when we start to make this more normal, that people under the age of 16 just don't use social media in that way, is this a tipping point where we can be like, okay, we can actually do something for the future generations instead of just accepting that this is what it is and just being like, okay, yeah, that's it. And I think a lot of that comes down to brands and big tech companies wanted to continue these things to make it feel like it's impossible. Like we can't take ourselves off the grid. Like I am a content creator and I'm a model, so I use my platform for those things. But if one day I decided I didn't want to be part of it, I can do that. And I shouldn't have to feel like, oh, well, you can't do that because the rest of the world isn't doing that. And it takes for big change and like cultural change to move us away.
People need to,
Absolutely. And there's this documentary that basically shows how Mark Zuckerberg, who founded obviously Facebook, won't even have his kid touch a single device, and they have like their own separate like school. He has like his own estate. He built a school in there, and he had like all the like some of their closest neighbors come in for like a very special schooling for their children, so they don't have to use social media at all. Like for someone whose main business revolves around social media to be so protective of their kids. And I mean, that's saying something. So.
So much information at a very young age is processed and plays a large part in the developing brain. And because children are being exposed to so many things that are totally age inappropriate, there's not an equal balance. For example, what a 5-year-old we think should know at 5-year-old is no longer the case. a 5-year-old now can know information, take it in, digest it as reality as if they were a 10-year-old. That's because they've been exposed to information that is far ahead of their time. That's one of the biggest problems I think I have with social media, AI, and what's being projected out there in the world today in relation to what's beautiful, what's normal, how a person should look in terms of body and image. It's just changing the way how our younger children are growing and developing. You're going to see, we're going to come round to a time where young children are no longer young children happily playing as they would be doing. They are already on a different platform, way ahead of their age, doing things way ahead of their age, but it comes across as the normal.
I do love social media though.
I have a love and hate relationship.
I use it. I still use it a lot, of course.
I do love it, but yeah, I have my moments. Like I say, people only show, for me, you only see maybe 15% of my life on there. I don't put my children. I did before, I used to, and then someone made a fake profile of me and took pictures of my children and put it on that page, and that scared, that absolutely, I was like, and I reported it to Instagram, and they said there was no violation, so it's still there. There's a profile that has my name with my children on it, and it's just there, and that's quite scary, I think. So I don't put my children on there now, and I'm very mindful of tagging where I am and showing views outside of my window, because you see some people and you can tell where they live. They will show, and people are doing this thing at the moment of a day with me or a life. And they go from their house to their job, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that's so dangerous. It's quite dangerous. There's people out there that unfortunately have stalking habits. So
and also those videos aren't real. I do them myself,
and
I film myself when I'm like exactly.
Get me to work, sweaty.
That's like a real day in the life. No one shows that. Everyone's like, I'm up at 6 a.m. doing yoga. And then I'm going to go work out. And I go,
The difference between Photoshop and AI social media images is that I guess it's more in relation to proximity. So Photoshop, for example, was more about editorial and a bit more of a distance and used for particular uses. Whereas I think now social media and AI is very accessible, very quickly, very widely, and there are so many images that one can now go on board and play with to change their own face, to change their own body, and then put out as if this is what I look like, this is who I am, when in reality that's not really who they are or how they are looking.